Hello all. Today I'm going to show you a little bit of how to paint. All right. You're going to be sent home with some brushes, or you might be working with brushes in the studio. And brushes come in various sizes. All right. We have various sizes that are marked on the outside of the actual brushes. So on these little guys, we have a size 1 here, it looks like. This one's a 6 and this one's an 8. So thus, the bigger the number, the bigger and the more full the brush tip is. So that means if you're painting a small area, you want to use the small brush. So when painting an area, decide whether that area you're about ready to paint is small, medium, and large, and choose the appropriate size brush, right? Okay. So tip number 1 is choose the right size brush for the job. So let's say that we are painting, let me move these out of the way, we're painting this large open circle, okay? I have some paint already squeezed out. I put some paint on what I call a palette paper, but if you're at home and you're working with some kind of paints that come out of containers, you can always put paints on, say, like aluminum foil. Paper plates, I do a lot at home myself as a quick grab, so that's just a thought. So I've got this green color. So suggestion 1, when grabbing the paint, some people just want to grab a big old glop of it and start laying it down. We want to put paint on the tip of the brush. It doesn't have to have paint all the way down here. Paint's going to make its way down there eventually, and it's okay too with these brushes. If you end up with one that's a newer brush that's all white, it will not remain all white. We know that white socks, white shirts, white anything, the clothes that we might wear is going to get dirty and change, and if we spill something on it, that stain color kind of stays in there a little bit. It's really hard to get out. So it's okay if the bristles stain. We just want to make sure that the color doesn't come out anymore when we go to wash them. And I have a short video on how to wash your brushes so that you don't get frustrated putting one color down and then you realize that the old color from your dirty brush is still coming through. All right, so I put it a little bit on the tip of my brush, right? Not the whole thing. And when you're dealing with a line that you want to paint up against, I put a little bit of that droplet down from my bristles and I begin to drag. Look at that. I'm going kind of one direction. I'm dragging and letting the paint just kind of ooze out of the brush, right? So I'm going to do that again. All right, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to drag. All right. Folks sometimes will try to go like sketch with it and feel like they have to go back and forth with painting. Painting doesn't need to go back and forth, and actually that's when the bristles open up. They fan open, and then you get a lot of rough edges, and you're like, gosh, I can't stay in the lines. So don't try and do too much too fast. Get yourself an outline, okay, again by placing your drop of paint down and then drag your brush along the edge. All right, and see I ran out of paint. That's okay, I have some more up here. I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna drop it and I'm gonna drag some more. Okay, so I got myself my outline. Now I'm gonna come back, pick up some more paint. Again, still not really filling up the whole brush, right? And I'm going to start to fill in the rest of my circle, okay? So again, we don't want to just kind of like go all different directions and start letting the brush do this, because when you go haywire, again, that's when your bristles are going to go haywire and you'll hop out of your zone. So keep it going, sort of the same direction. It'll dry a lot more smooth, okay, following the leader. All right. One of the other things I tend to do at times is I never paint without paper towels. At times, if you get too much on your brush, you're like, oops, that's too much. You can wipe some off. If it runs down the side of your brush, you've got a paper towel to kind of wipe off excess. All right, so I normally always tell my students to have some paper towel handy. Also, it allows you to have something to lay your brush on when you're not using it, okay? Let's talk about small areas. So let's say I would like to, actually I'm gonna use this old brush that I just cleaned off a little bit here. I'm gonna take some of this green and I'm gonna add some of this green to this white. All right, because I wanna make a really light green color. All right, look at that. I'm just kind of going back and forth, letting it kind of all mix in there. All right. And see how I'm kind of swirling to kind of squeegee out the excess. Because the brushes hold a lot of paint, they really do. So when you're mixing, you kind of have to kind of squeegee out some of the leftovers there from our paints. Okay, so I'm not gonna paint with this big guy because I wanna paint this in some small areas and this is too big, right? I'm gonna wipe off some of this excess paint here. All right, lay that brush off to the side for a while. I'm gonna pick up the small one because I wanna get in around this top area and even into those areas. So I need details, right? So I'm going for that number 1 brush. So I'm gonna pull in a little bit of paint, and again, same idea, just a little bit on the tip of it. I don't need the entire brush engulfed. And I'm gonna put a little bitty sort of drops, doop, 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 coming in to those little small areas, okay? And then I'm doing the same thing that I just did on the outside. I'll drop and I'll drag. I'll drop and I'll drag my brush, right? And then I can start to fill in, drag, anything that's in between, okay? So I'm gonna drop it and drag, all right? So don't let your bristles of your brush go boom, okay? Don't push down on the brush where the metal ferrule, this is called a ferrule, where the metal ferrule actually, boom, comes into contact with the table or the paper or the canvas, because that's just gonna rough up your paper and your bristles do this, okay? So we only want to put enough pressure to push down on this so it alleviates some of its paint, but never full force, all right? So in an area like this, I would probably use the small brush again, okay? And then on the bigger area, I could go somewhere, I could use the larger one in there. Maybe I might use the medium one to outline and then come in with the bigger one to fill in. That could work. Any of the above, okay? So, reminders. You've got more than one size to consider when you look at more than one sizes of spaces you need to fill with paint. So choose the size appropriate brush. Small space, small brush. Medium space, medium brush. Big space, big brush. All right? Don't fill up the entire brush with paint. There's no need to engulf the whole thing. It's going to either drip accidentally on your artwork, or as soon as you put it down, it's gonna ooze where you don't want it to, okay? Number 3, don't do the sketch outline. That's only gonna get bristles going outside. Do the place it and drag on the outline. Okay, that's gonna get you a little bit of a cleaner line, all right? Next, make sure you kind of fill in the spaces going a similar direction, all right? Rather than back and forth, up and down, side to side, all right? Have paper towel handy while you are painting to wipe off and then fold it in on itself so that you aren't getting yourself any more dirty and you won't get the table quite as dirty if you might be working at home as well. Okay, so those are some helpful tips for painting with a brush so that you can get yourself a more accurate fill on spaces. See you next time.